this part.
Hello, come on.
Oh, okay, I got
This.
you. All right.
This.
It's great.
Disappeared.
It's really cool. Hello, Tracy.
Yeah, we are definitely good with corn.
We almost made an awkward
All right, we're good. huh?
Entrance into.
I almost, we,
yeah.
Christine.
I put up a tiny sign and I asked Dwight, our security guy up front, I was like,
Very
will you
nice.
help people?
Dwight
Like, yeah.
said,
He's such a cool.
Take a
guy.
left.
I
Okay.
love
He was
Dwight.
so helpful when I was doing the election stuff. He was always there. Of course, I.
Oh my gosh, he
He's
literally
very
makes my
kind.
day.
He cheers me up.
He does. He's always positive.
Yeah, I know, it's great.
Anybody need an agenda?
Yeah, I printed out
Paper
agendas.
packet.
Thanks, Rick. Or we can share one.
All right. Patrick, don't let me forget you're out there, so excuse me, I always forget when people call in, so just yell if you need to be heard. Let's get this show on the road. Call to order, the roll call, all started, Michael Chisholm, chair. That away?
Mel present.
Tracy, present.
Tracy?
Logan, present.
Christine Brinker present.
Rick, present?
Me, Pat Fitzgerald, present.
Well, thank you. And we don't have any guests tonight. You and Christine are gonna be our guest speakers, right?
Yes.
Great. Okay, last meeting minutes, need to approve them or modify them or correct them? Anybody have any changes, modifications, or
Hey,
corrections?
we have
Bob,
a
how you doing?
guest.
Good. That's a face I haven't seen in a while. See you,
I
Bob.
don't want to see it much more.
I know.
All right. Well,
we
we've been talking
introduce-
about you,
can
so
we
we'll
introduce our
clean up our
guest
act.
just for our minutes?
Yep. Mike, grab the guest for our minutes, will you?
Pardon me?
For the minutes, we just need documentation of the guest.
We need to, I'm not tracking the
Recognize.
Recognizing the guest.
Oh.
I didn't recognize him when he came in.
I remember. That's Bob Stephenson.
Yeah.
Bob, you identify yourself, and thank you for coming to the meeting.
Yeah, Robert Stephenson, live in Englewood, Colorado, former city employee.
Great. Thanks again. Thanks, Logan. All right, we were talking about approval of minutes. Do we have any modifications, changes, or corrections? If not, I would entertain a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Thank you.
Tracy, second.
Seconded. Approval, thank you. Okay, public forum. This is an opportunity for the public to address the commission. We have a.
Oh, wait, did we get everyone saying aye to the minutes? Did I
Oh,
miss
we-
that?
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Thanks, Mel.
Patrick?
How do you vote?
Great, awesome, okay. Proceed.
Okay. All right, now we're at Roman numeral 5, public forum. Opportunity for the public to address the commission regarding items not on the agenda or on the agenda. Commissioners may ask questions for clarification, but there will not be any dialogue. Presentation will be limited to 3 minutes. Mr. Stevenson, do you have anything to say?
Yes,
Okay.
I wouldn't be here if I didn't. Just a couple of things. Mike and I have been talking about that he's going off and looking towards the future and things like that. And I wanted to back up what he's going to say, or maybe introduce what he's going to say, and also make a couple of other observations and then leave it as is. We have within city limits and close to city limits a bunch of methane generators, the garbage dump that the golf course sits on, the Sheridan redevelopment sits on a bunch of it, and also the Centennial Park Rockies baseball field sits on top of it. Those are generating methane. If you look at the Rockies field, the outfield posts have U's on the top of them to disperse the methane that's coming up through that solid seat that it sits on. Many of the trees on the front line of the golf course won't grow because of the methane and the low soil thing. And we'd like to see if there's some way to maybe collect that or disperse it in a much more environmentally friendly manner. And also, this building has been a part of the city for about 40 years now, I think. And from what I understood about the time that I left, the city manager, Eric, at that time was interested in getting out of the building, actually, because it is such a monstrosity to heat and utilities. It was not designed as an office building. It was designed as a department store and was converted. And at one time, there was a solar generating apparatus on the roof. I don't know if that's still there. We used to have a monitor in the foyer to watch it, or so that the public could understand what we were doing. I know at Malley that's still the case, or at least the solar's still there, and I think at the service center it is. And I'd like to see stuff like that maybe made more public or brought to the fore, and maybe updated so that we get more energy from what we have. And such things as green roofs and things like that would be excellent for the city to set the standard, or at least put it in the public view.
Bob, I do want to say you hit your 3 minutes, just so you know.
What?
You did hit your 3 minutes.
You want to change your name and come back?
Yeah. Now I'm Robert E. But a couple of other things along those lines too. I would really like to see, one of the banes of my existence is that there are so many trash cans, both in parks and in public areas, even in the city areas, and there's no opportunity to recycle. And I would like to see that increased by putting recycling and maybe even compost. I've seen a lot more composting coming in at Malley and some other places, and I think that would be good. But overall, Colorado's recycling rate is abysmal, and anything that we can do within the city to increase that. And along those lines too, it has been something that I've noticed over the years, that the businesses have no incentive to recycle, and very few of them do. And I see more cardboard and more plastic just entering the waste stream. And if there is, I think we need to look at some way to incentivize businesses and large apartment buildings and the public more education to get to them.
I'm going to cut you off, but does anybody have questions for Bob?
Any ideas, Bob, about how to capture the methane? I'm curious.
I don't. I want to put it in the grist mill, basically. That's what Mike and I were looking at. I think it would take a lot, and it may be cost ineffective, but
I'll address a little bit of that one.
but there's a whole bunch there to do. And you know, anything that we can do to get businesses and apartments and people to recycle and compost would be, and maybe incentives would be a carrot and stick approach. I don't know.
It might be worth talking to, or hearing from Peter Van Rye or someone from South Platte. I believe they had a fairly successful gas recapture
They do.
pilot, or it's fully functional. I'm not sure
It's
the
fully
extent.
functional, and that's, you know, Mike can talk to
Is
that
it,
about.
is it replicable?
Yeah,
in the
or
areas?
expanding it, or, you know, maybe doing something with Sheridan, because about half of it, maybe more, is in Sheridan.
I can speak on why Sheridan doesn't do it for their Riverpoint one. That's a mix of safety and cost, which is why they don't do methane capture, but they do obviously monitor it.
Yeah, they have to.
Yeah.
Again, I'll address some of what you guys are asking about. I did it. But, you know, Bob got me thinking. So
then he dragged
he and
me
I
out
talked
there
and I was
to-
getting all worked up, like, we're putting methane in. So, but there are, again, technology has changed so much in the last 5 years. There are things that are possible today that were just not even imagined 5 years ago, which is pretty cool.
I have great news about the recycling piece. So through the extended producer responsibility bill through the state, businesses are going to get free recycling. Christine, I'm looking at you actually. 2027, 2028 is when they're kind of slating it. I know it's not the soonest, but it is on the docket. And multifamily is wrapped into the residential piece, which they're hoping to roll out in 2026.
Yeah, it makes sense. I just saw a thing just before I came over that Boulder can track, you know, how much of their waste from the Marshall fire went and where it went and how much was recycled. And I think that would be hard for us, but it might be something that we could look at to start tracking that, because we have at least two commercial recyclers and garbage companies. So.
Well, I hate to be pushy, but we're gonna have to stay. You're welcome at the meeting. We gotta get through this agenda, but thank you very much. I appreciate you taking the time to come in, Bob. Upcoming tasks and events, standing committee projects and updates. Any standing committee reports or updates that we need to talk about? Logan shaking his head no.
Not from
Tracy, anything?
Not currently.
Okay. All right. Here we go. Item B, standing Decarb DRCOG updates. I want to hear this because I don't know what's going on. So Christine and Mel, educate us. What's happening?
Want to start or do you want me to start?
Yeah, so was put on the agenda as a request by Christine, and I think it's a great one to have just because of that 200 million EPA funding, which Robert from DRCOG came to give a presentation on. So Christine and I are both in subcommittees for this, so we're tracking it, and I think it's just good to keep it on folks' radar. So Christine, feel free to kick it off and I can add in wherever.
Right. I want to say that the Decarbonized DRCOG project program, they are staffing up. They are launching all of their different pillars, and the pillars include a large workforce component and a large communications, marketing, and community engagement component. An incentives component, especially for lower income households, to upgrade their heating, air conditioning, and water heating systems to high efficiency electric versions, and a policy component, and that one is called the Buildings Policy Collaborative, or BPC. So that's the part that I am most familiar with. So I can't report on the others, but this part, they have had 3 meetings so far with all of the interested jurisdictions within DRCOG. So there's 58 total jurisdictions in DRCOG, and I don't know, maybe half of them so far have been active in those first 3 meetings of the Buildings Policy Collaborative. And as you can imagine, the first couple of meetings were defining the goals and then refining the goals. And this most recent meeting a day or two ago was diving into how should the funding be allocated to all of the different jurisdictions. Should it be just a formula amount where everyone gets the same amount, or should it be based on population, or should it be based on growth, or should it be based on a percentage of lower income households? Or should it be based on how far behind they are in energy codes and decarbonization, or some combination thereof? And then should it be formula, or should it be competitive, where you pitch your idea and DRCOG picks the best ones and funds them? Or some combination? Should it be a couple different rounds of maybe the first round is formula, and then if everyone doesn't snatch up the money or some jurisdictions don't want their part, then you can apply for the rest, like compete for the rest. So that is all in the hopper. They had small breakout groups, etc. I guess the takeaway is that even though there aren't any decisions yet, we will be getting some funding, and we will definitely want to take advantage of that funding, and it will be for buildings decarbonization. That would include residential, commercial, multifamily, whatever we decide is most important. And so we might want to be thinking as we go along what we want to suggest that Englewood use that funding for. And then make sure that that gets into the queue as Englewood applies for that funding. So what is most important for us to do with that yet as unknown amount of funding? The eligible uses, they also discussed what should be the eligible uses. Energy codes are a top consideration. Adoption and implementation of energy codes, the funding could go directly to support staff. It could be a staff member for 5 years to do the energy code plan review and inspections, or we could share an energy code specialist in our building department with 1 or 2 other jurisdictions. So there's that bucket. There's the general training and education idea. There's reforming our permitting and licensing to make it more streamlined to permit high efficiency projects and heat pump based projects. There's some other categories in there that could be potential. The group had a very strong desire to try to encourage collaboration and regional consistency with this pot of money, and so that part is still, they'll still have to figure out how exactly to do that, because if all 58 jurisdictions pitch their own ideas, then we'll still end up maybe slightly better than where we are, but with no overall consistency, which then doesn't help the building community that would like a more streamlined approach and a little more regional consistency.
Is Englewood, well, what region is Englewood in?
We're in the DRCOG region.
So we're in the
Yeah.
DRCOG?
Yeah,
Okay, and it's guaranteed that
yeah,
the DRCOG will get some money?
yeah.
It's
Yeah.
just TBD.
We're getting the full 200 million from EPA. That was a DRCOG grant.
Mhm.
It's just of the sub grant, I believe it's around 40 million. They're dividing up between the different communities that make up DRCOG.
Got it.
And DRCOG goes as far south as Littleton and as far north.
Okay. I didn't know the footprint of
Yeah,
COG. That's all.
it's pretty large. It's really exciting.
Brighton,
So
Adams County.
is the preference, or is it 100% for decarbonization of existing structures? So if Englewood was going to build a new structure next year, could they ask for money to demonstrate solar panels on the roof or whatever?
It's new and existing, I believe.
Okay.
It's policies that would lead to decarbonization in new or existing, and it's incentive dollars for residential, and I'm not sure about commercial, probably.
Okay.
Multifamily, for them to do it. And they didn't explicitly say it's for cities to build their own new buildings or upgrade their own buildings or do demonstration projects, but I imagine that would be what could be pitched when we apply for our
As an example,
allocation.
Christine, you got me thinking that in my neighborhood, there's the possibility that there will be a 4-story apartment building
Uh-huh.
in the next year or two,
Yeah,
maybe sooner. And if you just sort of imagine, it'd be cool if Englewood could say to the developer, the greener you make this building, or the more you adhere, if you exceed these goals, and you make, let's say, a carbon neutral building, you know, we, the city, can give you some money or incentives. Is that a little far-fetched, or could a city do something to encourage developers to be as green as they could be, I guess is what I'm saying.
I think that could be
Possible.
considered, yeah. The overall goal, which you were kind of hinting at, is not just one-off projects, but figuring out how to use this funding for systemic change. And that would be the policies that lead to these projects happening on their own. Or if it's a one-off project, is it innovative enough and replicable enough that you could make the case that it's not one-off?
Okay, that's interesting.
And so if the city were applying for that, I guess they'd have to do some math or some calculations about how much do we offer and how green do you have to be? Is there a sliding scale?
Green scale.
And then how much could each project get? I suppose that Denver has a model of that just with their heat pump and heat pump water heater
Yeah.
incentives. And so that's just not overall efficiency, but it is, if you put this in, we'll give you money for it.
Yeah.
We'll pay the incremental difference for you.
And if it's really innovative, the city might have to modify its code somewhat. Because I'm going to mention one company I mean, there's some crazy stuff going on out there that's really innovative, and it's ahead of city planning. And so the city would have to be open to saying, we'll allow it to be a pilot project, or we'll do a variation of our codes for this project. I mean, so it's pushing the bubble, the envelope, in a good way.
And my
But
understanding
some
is
of the stuff
that the
out
codes
there
would
is wide.
already allow that. The codes would allow a developer to pitch to the building department, we can't meet your code in this particular way,
Right.
or we're trying this new technology, and the building department can give them
Yeah,
special
yeah.
permission, but that would mean educating the building department and
Yeah.
bringing them along maybe from the design phase.
Well, is council updated on this stuff? I mean, are they keeping
So we
abreast
have
of it?
2 city council members that, a city has to have city council members on the DRCOG board. They
Okay.
have to have members.
Okay.
And they also had it in one of their city council Friday reports too, but they should be well aware of it due to them sitting on the board.
Who sits on it for Englewood?
I believe it's Mayor Sierra and Councilmember Wright, but I would not die on that hill either. I think it's those 2.
Okay, who funds, how is the Green Business Program funded?
So the Green Business Program currently is funded through plastic bag fee funds, and we're going to council for 2026 to request that it's through the general fund. We wanted to show its success in the beginning, and Aiden fully knows this too, that he's guaranteed 2 years, and after that, it's really
Yeah.
showing the success of the program.
Well, I wonder if it'd be beneficial, I'm sure Aiden is in tune with this.
He's on one of the subcommittees. He's on the Green Workforce Subcommittee.
I would like to
Um,
have a conversation with him. Or entertain the idea as a commission to bring him back. We've heard from him before. Very impressive young man. And just kind of talk a little shop about this with someone. You know, he is the program coordinator for the city. So I'd love to hear his thoughts and hear his ideas in another forum
Like about the EPA funding.
about this specifically. And what ideas he might have, since the city has already established a program around green building infrastructure and things.
Well, that's my question is you know, we do have a lot in place. When they did the revisions on the city plan, they put in an awful lot of stuff relative to this in 16. What systemic thing could you see the city doing? You know, how do we change existing to be able to you know, invest this properly? I'm the kind of person who wants to see immediate change, and I mean, I would be all for some rebate system to people who want to put in, you know, converters and things like this, because I think that's feet on the ground change versus, well, if we put, you know, you brought somebody in and we could hire them for a few years and they could do this, that to me is not change. That to me is kind of, yeah, we're laying the groundwork, but we're not necessarily making the sort of change that this money, I have a feeling, is intended to do.
So one thing on the staff capacity piece, at least for a building department, sometimes building departments won't recommend doing more intense energy or building codes because they don't have the staff capacity to actually implement it. So getting staff capacity gives them the opportunity to make more stringent codes, but that's just the piece for staffing.
Yeah, and even if it only was for 5 years of the grant and the city couldn't come up with the funding after that to maintain that person or that part of a person, maybe that 5 years alone would help the developers and builders come up to speed on what is expected for full energy code compliance. Right now it's hit or miss what gets checked, what doesn't, what they could put on their initial plans and not follow through. It's not full. So maybe if there was 5 years of more intensive compliance assistance and training for the building community, that could have some carryover after that 5 years even.
I will say the folks at DRCOG overseeing the grant agree with you. They want to see really fast results. They kind of have to. In their grant application, they said they're going to reduce by a certain amount of greenhouse gas emissions by 2030. They had to come up with a climate action piece of it. There's a lot of work that goes into it. So they're not looking to fund something that won't have an impact.
And which part are you engaged in?
I'm in the LIDAC, the Low Income Disadvantaged Community one, but because Mac is now a part, Mac was someone at Denver leading the group, and then he got hired by DRCOG. So that subcommittee is just a little on hiatus while he gets resituated in. And then, yeah, Aiden's in the green business workforce one. Sorry, green workforce, not green business.
Fascinating. But I take it from both of you, you're encouraged. This is feeling like a good thing. It's happening here.
What's the difference between the 199 million and the 40 million? I mean, is 40 million available or is 199 million?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the 199 is for the project overall. The divvying money into the local communities is that 40-ish million. It's either 40 or 50, I'm blanking on which one. But all the other stuff goes into really awesome things. So one is a one-stop shop, like residential, like call center. And I actually think you brought this up last year when we were talking about energy efficiency programs. You're like, I wish people could call a number and they could tell them what they need to know. They're essentially setting that up with the funding in multiple languages. They're investing in a lot of green workforce with like contractors in order to boost the green workforce because we're exceedingly lacking in that. The workforce as it is now, we wouldn't be able to reach our climate goals.
What do you mean by workforce?
Yeah, like electricians. So think of like if you want to install a heat pump for all of the Front Range, we're lacking in those folks to do that.
Okay.
The number that we need to reach the goals that we want to reach.
How would that be invested?
So they're investing in the companies that already do it. They're upskilling them through trainings. And then there are some companies that, right, they're electricians, but maybe they haven't done heat pumps so that they can help put on like classes and certifications for them.
Yeah, I discovered
Boosting trainings at community
we ended up putting in a new gas hot water heater. Now, I tried to go electric, but let me tell you, finding an electrician to put 220 into my basement was next to impossible.
Right, and that's what they want to try and not have, to not
And
discourage
so that's an
people.
example of what
Yeah.
you're saying.
Mhm.
And anyways, it wasn't, I mean, it would be nice if it was easy. If you could simply say, yeah, I want an electric hot water heater, and then, oh, here are the contractors, here's the rules of the game. That was not what, and we had to get a hot water heater pretty fast. So it's a little more efficient than the one we got rid of, but it was disappointing.
Yeah.
We were willing to spend a little more. I mean, it wasn't
And
bad.
now they make 110 heat pump water heaters, just to fix that particular problem. They are new to the market.
See,
So
there
they
you
wouldn't
go.
have been the obvious choice when you were getting it.
Yeah.
It might not have even been on the market
Yeah.
at all, but now they are.
That made me think another chunk of that funding is towards an innovation grant fund for small businesses who have innovative ideas for building electrification. So investing money back into businesses in the DRCOG region, which I think that's
Yeah.
really cool.
Yeah.
The plumber we worked with, and they're good, they said, don't even fiddle with it. In other words, I know what you want, don't fiddle with it. It's red tape, it's time, it's expensive, it's complicated, and there you have it. That's what you're talking about. That has to be addressed, that you should fiddle with it. It's not impossible to do, but as of a year ago, it wasn't easy, so that's important. Keep up the good work. Okay, can we move on?
We do have, last thing, we do have in our
Oh, I'm sorry.
energy codes now that for new construction, they have to include the wiring and electrical capacity for swapping in a heat pump water heater. So at least for
Cool.
going forward, even the new homes that are built with gas water heaters, the future homeowner could swap it out easier than you.
No.
That's cool. Good to know.
No.
We're about to have to go through that.
All right, thank you. Very interesting. Good news on the horizon.
For
Um,
garages, for EVs.
Okay, annual sustainability report.
Oh, I should have printed that out.
Never mind.
Hopefully everyone saw it. Did I send it? Did I send it?
Yeah.
Okay, good. I can pull it up. It's not in its pretty format, but I just want to see if anyone had any feedback on it, anything they wanted to see changed. Give me 1 minute to pull it up. And then for where this report goes, just like all the other ones, it'll go to a city council packet for them to see. They don't do the presentations like they've done before. Wow, my laptop is on Monday time, that is for sure. Okay. So yeah, we don't have to go through the whole thing if you all already read it, but you all direct me on how you would like to go through the report.
I didn't find anything to object to.
No,
I thought
this-
it was well written.
Yeah.
I thought you covered, I think I was looking particularly toward the sustainability commission's
Mhm.
piece of that, and I thought you were very complete with that, so.
Great.
This is what we wordsmithed last time.
Uh-huh, yep.
Okay, I have no edits.
Everyone
Did you get a
good?
number in there for your thing yet? The XX?
Not yet.
Who do
Is
you
it-
want me to bug? 'Cause I can-
I'm working with Kimberly. She's like, I'm so swamped because I just got back from the holidays.
She
It's like, you're
is.
okay.
She is. I see her on Wednesday, so if you want me to ask her,
A little bugging.
just
number.
little nudge, gentle reminder.
All right, great. Well, I will send this to our comms team and then the final beautiful version I'll send to you all.
Good work.
Can I just ask one
Yeah.
question about the at your door household hazardous waste?
Mhm.
How is that going?
It was so successful.
I actually,
Good.
It was
I
super
I
successful.
signed up yesterday to have someone come pick up.
Yes.
That
Was it
curious.
hard? Was it easy?
No, I called the number on the website, and this person picked up within 30 seconds. I was like, I'd like to schedule a front door pickup. And he's like, okay, great, I can help you. Give me a little bit of detail about you and what you want picked up. And he's like, it's $20, we'll be there on, January 25th.
Wow.
Have it out front.
So you do have to call, it's not like an online,
You do have to call.
You
I
do,
tried to go
okay.
through a link and it just says you do have to call.
Oh.
Because they
Oh.
need that information, I think.
like, but wouldn't that be
You could
something
do
you
it
could put
online.
into an online system?
I can ask
I did try
our
to-
government contact there if that is a thing. to
But
call.
that's good to know that people are using it.
We actually get, so they offer you a free survey. The mailing thing is already paid for. So we get these postcards and I think I have like well over 80 and I read through each one and all of them are like super happy. The notes are like, thank you for having this. We have, yeah, people have just been really happy about it. And the call volume for people throughout the year calling me about like, what do I do with my hazardous waste has significantly dropped.
Oh, that's nice.
Before we had this program, it was really unfortunate because someone would call me in January being like, I have all this hazardous waste. I was like, hold on to it until September. Sorry.
Yeah.
So it's been great.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
That's really good.
Very good. Excellent. Okay. Thanks, Mel. Okay, item D, and I just want to introduce it. As I move to the exit door, I thought it would be enjoyable, entertaining, interesting for people who have wondered or just have an idea of why doesn't Englewood do this? And so this is not to sell anything, this is not to persuade anybody, it's to raise awareness to ideas that are sustainability related. And I suspect all of us have had these kinds of thoughts at different times of why the heck. So I'm hoping it's interesting and I don't want to belabor it. Again, we're not trying to sell anything. But for future fodder, for activities, as Sustainability Commission is trying to be more proactive, which I think is fantastic. There's nothing that says the Sustainability Commission can't make recommendations or raise awareness with staff, with council of why don't we do this, or is the city looking into that? Just some of the stuff Bob brought up. Where is that? I didn't know about methane, for example. And so I think part of our job is to be aware. And Mel's brought a lot of stuff into us, but I'm suspecting some of us can bring stuff into it too. So who'd like to start with an idea? You don't get in trouble if you don't have any ideas.
How many were we allowed? Because
Well,
84?
try to look at your top three. Let's do that. So I'm going to pick on you, Logan.
Pick on me? Let me
Whittle
look
down
through
your
these.
list to 3 and let us have it.
Great. I sort of categorize mine between carrot, stick, and miscellaneous. I think it's subjective, but what's most important to me is water conservation. And so I'll just kind of rattle off a few that I put in that sort of vein. And I've seen cities on the Front Range do this, and the bullet says no turf on new builds or property, or when you're scraping a property and redoing it. And then the latter piece is because we're landlocked in Englewood. We don't have a whole lot of new land builds going in.
Right.
So I believe it is Castle Rock is a municipality who has actually banned, check me on that.
Aurora's a big one that did it, and Castle
Turf.
Rock I know has done something. I
Okay.
can't remember what.
Yeah, both of those are leading, at least on the Front Range. And why not Englewood? When I listen to some of the minutes of the city council meetings, and it seems divisive on the face, but when you get into the nitty-gritty, I think more people agree with the idea than not. And I did say on new build because we can't really be very burdensome to go back and make people terrible on their lawns. But a good transition on that front.
Wait, can I ask a clarifying question?
Yeah,
really quick?
shoot.
Do you mean no, like additional turf, like no pulling out something to put in turf? Or if someone does a scrape of a building, yeah, I guess, is it taking away current turf or just not expanding on the turf
The
that's
latter.
there? Not expanding,
Mhm.
okay.
I was going to say, can you make these in just a list of ideas
Yeah,
somehow
yeah.
for future reference maybe?
You got to get the teams out to just like take all the notes for you. AI. And then related, a bit of more of a carrot. And please like poke holes in this. I'm just throwing things out there, just talking out of my.
But one.
I put tax breaks for residential homes for homes with certified xeriscaped or certified pollinator yards.
Oh.
Plus the grant money to fund working toward that certification. Because we walk our neighborhood and I see several lawns with the plaque that says certified pollinator, and it's beautiful. It's a beautiful yard. It's well done.
Yeah.
And I want to incentivize more of that on a residential level. And
Too bad they couldn't have done that for you, Tracy.
I know.
right?
But Englewood is supporting
True.
Turf removal.
We have turf-free dates.
Yes, we do, which is big. Love that. So commend what's already been done. And it's been successful, it sounds like. 2 more and I'll be quiet. But I literally have probably 30. But, oh, I lost it as I scrolled. Why did I do that? Citywide residential watering restrictions for certain months. This is not uncommon. We might not, I don't know if we're in by definition, a drought right now, but we live in such an arid landscape. It's gonna be hot every single year. It's gotten noticeably warmer and hotter for longer periods of time since I moved here 8 years ago. And from the water conservation perspective, I believe we should have, this is a stick, of limited watering in the months of, August through October. I can't tell you how many times it's 104 degrees, 2 p.m., and I'm walking around my neighborhood and people are watering. There's proven research and statistics to show that a significant portion of that water does not even reach the yard it's aiming to irrigate, which in the end is just turf with no real benefit besides aesthetics.
Or when you see it on the sidewalk and you're like, oh my gosh.
I have reported through Inglefix when I see sprinklers just not just watering at 2 p.m., which I do want to report that, but I don't. But when it's just blatantly watering the sidewalk or their driveway, it bothers me. And that's an area of passion for me. So citywide watering restrictions in the hottest summer months and limited to evenings or early morning. And then smart metering, AMI on all households, which I believe there's an effort to do currently. So I'll stop there and pass the mic.
Excellent. I couldn't agree with you more.
I really like the tax incentive.
Christine, what do you got? Anything?
I was wondering if you guys had seen Denver Water's parody of the Backstreet Boys, I Want It That Way, and they did it to I Water That Way.
No.
And they have Denver Water staff singing their version of I Water That Way.
Oh my God.
It's
I
so
love
good.
It's
that.
required, it's
That is
required watching.
Amazing.
So I'm sorry to steal the mic for a second. That leads back. The last bullet was comprehensive water conservation public education campaign, and it could go as far as Denver Water and Aurora Water do a wonderful job when it comes to public education around water conservation. So please, I just wanted to note that was a part of this.
I can't wait to tell the
Robust,
utilities
comprehensive.
department that they're gonna do a music video. They're gonna be like, absolutely not.
Love to
thought
see
you
some
were gonna say
engineers
absolutely.
do the Backstreet Boys.
Denver Water set the bar, we gotta raise it. We can't be shut up by Denver Water.
And they have the heat pump hot takes video. Have you seen that one? Oh my god. That was
This is all
They
by
talked
Denver.
about heat pump
Yeah.
issues while eating
Oh, I wanna see
increasingly
these.
spicier hot wings.
Oh my God.
That's
awesome.
hilarious.
That's good.
And actually Mac, he's the one that was leading the LIDAC one and is now, and now part of DRCOG. So I'm like, come back. But it's super funny.
How do I find these?
Probably on YouTube.
I can try and send them on a follow too if I find it, but it's,
Okay.
All right, come on, let's get back to business.
Sorry.
Everybody got some ideas?
Mine, you will be shocked to hear, are about bicycling infrastructure and about energy stuff. I don't think we have this, but correct me if I'm wrong, but I would love if we had a complete streets policy where each paving and rejiggering of intersections and reworking of streets automatically came with a review of how can we make this work the best for, not just for cars, but for walking and bicycling as well, instead of just continuing with the business as usual. So I had heard this from Littleton, that they had a group of citizens that had pushed really hard to just institutionalize thinking about complete streets instead of the citizens having to fight tooth and nail for every 2 blocks of sidewalk improvements or every 2 blocks of a bike lane, to say, let's just automatically consider those. So I would like to see that, and I would like to make sure that bicycling is a key component of that, because I see that cars are always considered, pedestrians are usually considered, and bicycles are basically never considered. They'll just say, I guess you can ride on the sidewalk even though that's illegal, or I'll put you right in with the cars going 45 miles an hour, and the cars don't want you there either. So I just want to make sure that the bicycles are a part of it. Okay, and then the second one, is, I guess, is along those lines. I would love to see a green belt that would connect the Little Dry Creek where it peters out around the big lots there, and run it through to connect to the Platte River. I understand it wouldn't necessarily be creek because that has buried pipes already, but it could be a greenway with a path and some trees or some bushes or something that would connect that through what I call parking lot land.
That's a very fitting name.
There is the development I mentioned, there is talk of a small slice of greenway. Point would be, could you make it a longer slice? And if I can add to your idea, increase permeable surface in Englewood. That's an opportunity, and Denver's doing a lot of this. Anytime, and I got this at the meeting in Boulder, anytime you tear up asphalt and cement and you put in permeable surfaces, you lower the air temperature in your community. It's just that simple. So, and also, they now make permeable paver stones. So you don't have to have gravel. You can, and you can have wood chips, but you can put pavers in that allow the moist. So that would go along with that suggestion as well.
My favorite of the bike path designs have a concrete bike path, multimodal path, and then alongside it, the gravel or softer surface for running, and then trees and bushes or grasses.
And that's back to an immediate impact. When every time you rip up cement or asphalt, you've done something significant. So you can tell I'm hot on that topic.
Well, I might have a couple more energy ones, but I think I'll just pass the baton.
Well, we can go around, and if there's time, we can
Yeah.
come back to you. How's that? Thank you.
I have another one on bikes, but Rick, go for it.
Well, I've got one that kind of dovetails into this, and it has to do with, I think that it would be really great if the city would come up with e-bike commuter paths so that we could actually be able to predict where e-bikes are going to be, because right now they're in the middle of parks, they're just about everywhere. But if there was actually a designated e-bike area, it would encourage people to use it, but it would also kind of concentrate that and make it a little bit safer to be able to do.
Why just e-bikes, Rick?
Well, I pick on e-bikes because of the popularity of them, because you're seeing more people utilizing them for commuting, even off of summertime. So, I mean, I see e-bikes in the fall and in the winter because, they're quick. They don't face as many weather issues. But I think that there's a lot that can be done to encourage it, but also to literally pave the way for them so that they have paths that are sort of this is the e-bike out into the city, out of the city, into a park area, through a park area, that kind of thing. So I think that's.
Rick, are you talking about like a map, like a wayfinding
Yeah,
map?
like a
Okay.
map,
I just
like
make sure I have it right.
just like you would have a biking map, you have an e-bike map, you know, or something along that line. The other thing and this is not a big thing, but I really, it's kind of stuck on my mind is, I don't think everybody knows how to recycle.
You're right.
I don't think they do. I don't think they know how to put what container in what bin and what is and what isn't. And I think we could partner with our trash services, our recycling services to provide education
Yes.
on how to recycle.
It's not that.
You know, it isn't that hard, but.
No, but people don't know.
I was just, I
Right,
pulled up
it's
a
not-
video
it's
from
right,
Waste
it's-
Management, and they
that
have a
is- it's
little
not
video
hard
blurb
to-
on it. And it basically says, you know, the triangle doesn't mean it's recyclable.
No.
It just means that, you know, it could be. And they said, these are the 4 that you can recycle. And I think people just assume, you
I
know,
agree.
and the other part is that, you know, can you recycle a pizza box? Well, pizza box has food substances in it, you know, but it's a
Had that
piece of
conversation last
cardboard.
week.
You know, so having educational opportunities and bringing in these companies that offer it to say, how do you do it and how do you do it properly?
A question for the group. Are there notes, or not the right term, are there anything on the actual bins currently?
No.
Because in airports or restaurants, you know, there's great, you know, little symbols to say, put this here, don't put this here, put this here. I mean, I don't know what the cost would be, you know, to partner with Waste Management on something like that, but.
Stickers.
Stickers, thank you.
Yeah, labels or something,
A
require
label.
labels on these things so that they know what is and is not.
I read them and pay attention to them.
Yeah.
In the airport, for example.
Yeah.
You know.
So those are mine.
I like it.
I get confused too. I mean, there's 4 categories, but which bucket works for which category? And sometimes the bucket just says recycles. So is that glass, plastic, and aluminum? Or is what type of plastic? So, you know, even if you said make it easy for 2, like in Cushing Park, what I see are aluminum cans and plastic Gatorade bottles. Just recycle those.
Right.
Start small.
Just make it that simple.
Right.
Yeah.
And you don't have to, the other stuff, leave it alone.
Yeah.
But anyway, I agree with you.
A corollary is I think any recycling infrastructure in parks or public places has to have the shape designed so it's intuitive what you put in there.
Okay.
Because when I see a trash can shaped thing next to a trash can shaped thing, 100% of the time, the recycling one has
Yes.
just plain trash.
Yes.
You know, I've
Not
spoken
accidental, but.
with Adrian about why is it that we don't see them in the rec centers? He says because people don't pay any attention to them and it makes their staff work twice as hard trying to sort it.
Yeah.
So they stop doing it.
But the ones in the airport have like paper
Right, the
where you
slots.
can't put anything else,
Mhm.
and then glass or plastic where it's like this. Yeah.
I mean, we're in 2025. Why hasn't this been?
Also, why is the staff
Why?
doing the sorting? I don't know why.
They shouldn't have to, but the
They have a
point is that they can't
custodial
afford it.
staff.
That's who is in charge of going back and sorting? Is that right?
So custodial staff, if they see a certain percentage of trash in recycling, they're told to just put it in the trash.
Right.
And there's a lot of contamination because actually the city, we get a fine if we put trash in the recycling, like enough trash in the recycling, we'll get a fine.
Who gets a fine?
The city does.
So why isn't there more?
Yeah, I have a lot of thoughts on that process,
Yeah.
but okay.
Yeah, it
Agreed.
just, I think simple things can be done to educate people. I mean, like you said, the
Exactly.
signs.
I was going more toward the residential, is to just say,
Yeah.
hey, listen, you know, we want to encourage you to do it, but if you put a bunch of food in your recycle container, they're gonna take they're not gonna go through and sort it, they're gonna
No.
take everything in there and say, well, you did a poor job, and they're gonna dump it in the trash. So all that work that you did is for naught.
Right.
A little contamination doesn't have it go in the trash though. I think that's thought that some people have, like, oh, if there's a banana peel and all this recyclable, the company won't take it. It has to be like pretty contaminated. And the biggest thing too is if you're putting recycling in a plastic bag, they're not gonna open that. They're just immediately putting that in the trash. That's actually, Waste Management told us that's their biggest thing.
And that's the kind of education that everybody in this
Right.
community should have.
Yeah.
Just exactly what you said.
There should be a sticker that's no plastic bags.
And there's probably a municipality that has done it. There's probably somebody out there who has,
Well, I think you make it a requirement of any of the carriers in this area to
Yeah.
educate your
Yeah.
people.
Right,
And maybe what that education piece looks like when you sign up for a service.
right.
So something a city can do, if it has an open market, is it can put contractually for a company that wants to be a trash hauler, they have to say like, you have to do X, Y, Z if you want to be licensed. So an education piece could be part of it. I know a handful of places require that they provide data. When we did our greenhouse gas inventory, it was pulling teeth getting community data because they're not obligated to give it to us. So stuff like that can make a difference of like, you need to do X, Y, and Z.
so categorically, what is Rick saying? I mean, in terms of your bullet point or your list, what are we saying? Better education on recycling? Is that
Yeah, I mean, that's the big,
Just 101.
101?
That could result in maybe a partnership with Waste Management or
Right.
to have a label or a sticker
Yeah.
and expansion into public spaces.
Yeah, requirements upon relicensing.
you know what, I would prefer that my trash be picked up every other week and my recycling
Yes.
be picked up
I
every week.
thought that,
Yeah.
I think that
Yeah,
all
I
the
don't
time.
fills
have,
up.
I
I
have
have
one bag
no-
of trash,
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Nothing in there.
you know?
And that's 2 households.
Yeah.
Because they share with the person next to me.
So I guess city-wise though, because we don't control trash haulers, is that the request asking them, requesting them to do more
Requiring them.
education?
I think if you
That's where it
push
gets
it
muddled,
far
right? We
enough, you
can-
could say, you know, one of the requirements to be a qualified city hauler is that if you have an education program that you, whatever that looks like, if it's labeling on your containers, if it's an educational piece that you pass out initially to the customer to let them know what is and what is not.
Yeah.
I think it's something that, you know, just as we do education pieces on composting through this,
Right.
you know, through
Yeah.
sustainability, you can do the same kind of thing. You have an education night on how to properly recycle. And you bring in your carriers to explain so that they can talk through it and say, here's how you do it.
I
That
would, to your question about how much can we actually do, I mean, we have an award-winning communications team, and I'm sure their plate is full and their schedule is full, but if you're gonna go the, putting out a bid to be our single hauler, you need to go through and work with our stellar communications team to put out a video or a campaign or something. I mean, we have the staff and the department here with the city, so how can you leverage both if we can't require?
To your
one?
point, Mike, if we're thinking of it, somebody's already.
Exactly, somebody's,
So they probably had it required by somebody.
Yeah, I mean, just thinking about like Cocoa, they're very good at, sending out newsletters or whatever. And I get that they're a smaller company, but
Right.
they're focused on educating,
Mhm.
their members on what they can compost, what you can't.
Mhm.
I mean, I would think that that would just be as simple for waste and recycling.
It's got to
Companies
help the
to do?
companies, because
Um,
they're actually, you're doing part of their work for them by doing it right the first time.
Right, I mean, we live with these
Mhm.
now, like, there could be an app, it could be a
That's a
simple
good
thing,
point.
like, here's a thing about, like, what you can recycle, this you
Yeah.
can't, people look at these all the time.
You can just Google it and AI will generate it.
This is
for you.
not the,
okay, let's move along,
Yep.
let's move on.
All right.
Tracy, you have anything, or Rick, you done?
I'm done.
I'm sorry.
well, I mean, we already touched on, like, the thing, I wish we could have, like, more about trash recycling and compost, but I would like to have compost for everyone, like, it just be like a service that you get.
Can I ask right there? So I have a similar point. I don't know what the cost would be, but maybe it's a partnership with Cocoa of, it's just city-provided composting bins upon request. And you have to understand demand and plan, you have to have so many bins ready so maybe twice a year, quarterly, there's just a sign up for anybody who wants a bin or something. I'm just spitballing, but
Yeah.
does Cocoa provide a service like that? If I were to call Cocoa, can I request a composting bin for my house?
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah,
Okay.
but you pay for it.
So that's my point, is why not Englewood? If we could have some sort of program funding to pay for that, because I don't want composting to be cost prohibitive.
I know.
Well, I thought
that's
about
what I'm
this,
saying.
so let's say you want to do composting, and you're willing to pay some money to do it, and you have 2 neighbors, you'll have 1 bin for 3 neighbors, or
Yes.
something like that. So you cooperate, and when you do that, Englewood kicks in 20%. So
50.
it's only committed people that are doing it. So on my street, not everybody would do it. I can think of 2 or 3 neighbors who would.
Right.
And if I said, we could put the bin in front of my house, and we'll all chip in, and as a reward, Englewood will say thank you, and Englewood will chip in. And so you go down the street, and there's 1 bin on the street.
Right.
Now, if people want to cheat and use it, great.
Yeah.
Great. If somebody sneaks down the street with their coffee grounds, but you know what I mean? It's like, you gotta start somewhere.
If I were to add on to that, the city could play matchmaker, because not everyone knows everyone on their
True,
block
true.
and their willingness to compost.
It's a good point.
Then on that,
Half of their
Madeline's table.
names,
That's a
but
great
I don't
idea.
know who would be willing to compost. But if
Right.
I could essentially put in my name, put in my address,
Yeah.
and then they could, like the carpool app.
And, you know,
You would
people
match
who are
up with someone
committed,
else.
well, pick on Bob, he takes his compost over to the Malley Center. The Malley Center is probably 8 blocks from his house. So he collects his compost and takes it, so there are people like that. So if I had a neighbor around the block, they might say, hey, on Wednesday, I'm gonna walk over to Mike's house and put my compost in the bin.
It's
Could be
like,
tied into the neighborhood leadership program.
Just-
I mean, there's a perfect way to
Nice.
disseminate that or to gather people together.
I think there's a meeting later this month. I'll mention it.
yeah, I was gonna say.
Okay, great. Tracy, are you
Well,
on a roll
so
here?
one other thing was, I mean, this is just in correlation to the work that I do with my business is, very passionate about, homes, not being scraped. Because I feel like, well, there was a home a few doors down from me that was just scraped. And I'm just wondering what builders have to go through in order to be approved for that. I mean, does the home have to, be condemned in order to be scraped? Or is it like, yeah, we don't want that, we want something bigger,
I think
we're gonna
it's the
scrape
latter.
it. And-
You own it, you
and
can do what you want.
I would love to see something where contractors need approval for scraping a house. Because I think it's ridiculous. And I don't want to see what's happening in Denver, happening in Englewood, which is already happening.
Which is happening.
Yeah. It's a
Okay.
lot going to the landfill, a lot of unnecessary. I mean, these homes that we live in are solid and they just need some updates and that's what I do.
Yep, good point. Okay,
If we're
go ahead.
trying to encourage just renovating a house rather than scraping it, I feel like we have a policy on the books that aim to do that that's failing, because I see a lot of scrapes where they will scrape all except a wall or 2,
Yeah.
or sometimes 3, and that's all. And then they will build the house around it, and then
Yes.
you won't even see those 3 walls. So I think we're kind of not getting our worth there from,
Yeah. There's some wording in there that probably
Yeah.
needs to be changed.
yeah.
Like a percentage of the home has to still be standing for it to be
Yeah.
like a remodel or, yeah.
Because I
I've
think
seen
they're
that
probably
too.
doing that because they're getting a cost break
They are. Yeah,
one way or another, and we're not getting the value for that.
because it's a rebuild instead of a
Yeah.
new build.
Yeah.
Can I mention 2 more real
Sure.
quickly, Mike?
Be quick.
Just- I'll
Be
be
quick.
quick. One, I want to see our work on the tree ordinance become real life.
Mhm.
Done some good work there. And then lastly, almost last, I got a good one for you, Mike. I want to see another depot pollinator? I mean, how can we have a city-funded, city-managed pollinator garden? Almost, I mean, I'd like to see you talk to Dana maybe or someone about it's great that we have one, but how do you have continuity of pollinators through our city and the surrounding areas? One is great. It feels like it'd be compounding benefit to have one in every quadrant of the city. I don't know. That's just a lofty thought, and it seems like an issue we might run into is, do we have enough volunteers or interest? So, I mean, how do we have the city help out with that?
Well, it goes to green belts, bicycle paths, and
Yeah.
permeable surfaces.
Yeah.
So you could have a pollinator garden alongside a bicycle path or an e-bike trail.
Yeah.
And you're killing a whole bunch of birds with one stone.
Yeah.
And it looks nice.
You know, there is an, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, we'll see on to that. I know it was last year, I think, that Adrian came in Sustainability Commission in collaboration with Parks settled on the turf target. And he had said if the bond passed, it would be 50% turf conversion by 2030. So that is on the targets list. Yeah, just adding that piece in there.
Yeah.
Okay.
There is an opportunity for all of this to happen, and it is in the retention pond that they're building right now. That is virgin territory in terms of what they're going to be putting in there. That has to be, you know, it's going to eventually be fields and things like that, but it could also be areas where any of these ideas could be played out. That I think you need to go to parks and let them know what you want to do, and you know when they do have those discussions. But I think those are all places things that could be tied into that.
I had more interest in biochar.
I wanted to see if Patrick or Lana had ideas they wanted to throw at us.
I have one, a real quick one I'll throw out. I think it could synergize well with kind of what we're already doing with the xeriscaping, Colorado scaping, but it's gray water reuse at the home. So I don't know if that would be in the form of incentives from the wastewater treatment plant to install the system or pay for a portion of it, but essentially reusing the gray water at your home to, obviously xeriscaping would cut back on a lot of the watering requirements. So any watering that does need to be done could be through the gray water program. So yeah, just a real quick idea there.
And so Patrick, what would that be? The city would have to have codes or regulations or rules on how you collect your gray water and how you use it?
That, or it could be simple as kind of what we're doing with the xeriscaping and pollinator gardens, just general education of like, hey, this isn't as hard as it looks. It can be installed very simply, and South Platte will give you $100 towards some of the equipment, stuff like that. It's just so not even in the code. It's just kind of a education program.
No, that's it. I mean, rain barrels.
Yep.
Collect rain
Yeah.
off the roof.
That too. Yep.
Great. Anything else?
Hi, I have a kind of fun, silly suggestion. I like what everybody said about, composting and biking quarters and everything. I think that's really important. I just have a fun one when you were telling us to come up with ideas. This thing called footfall harvesting. So it's a technology wherein kinetic energy is used in tiles that then transforms into electricity. So the footfall on these tiles actually creates electricity for like street lights in urban areas where lots of people are walking. So just kind of like a, kind of silly idea, but like for downtown space to have something like this that kind of brings people together in a fun way, gets them moving, gets them talking to each other, and actually generates electricity too. Again, just kind of a fun idea to get creative juices flowing.
And the crosswalk on Broadway would be a perfect spot for that.
Oh yeah, I love the idea of a pilot.
Oh, yeah.
I've never heard of that, Lana.
That's cool.
That made me think of another one. Thanks, Lana. I think it would be really cool to have a playground that is made of recycled wind turbine parts. And so you would slide down the blade, you would crawl through the large tower and learn about wind power at the same time. We know that
No, that's
it's
a-
hard to recycle wind turbine parts, so they want to get rid of them. And when I looked a while ago, there was one park in the Netherlands, and that's it in the whole world. So we could be the second.
Well, we
That'd
can
be
either
cool.
put fighter jets or windmills, you know, in the park.
I love that idea.
Hey, Lana, believe it or not, that idea has been put into motion down in Highlands Ranch at the rec center I used to go to when I lived down there. They actually took a number of the machines that people were using, rowing machines, biking machines, et cetera, and actually generated energy out of
That's
those.
cool.
And they tracked it. You could see how much energy those machines had
Wow.
generated that was going back into the grid. So it is conceivable that all that work that people do at rec centers could be actually regenerated
I
and
love it.
stored as battery
I love it.
power.
That's
So
really
it's a very legitimate thing.
I've heard of that too. I really like that idea too. If there's some way to like get people to interact too while expending this energy and creating it, that would be ideal.
See, it's like,
Well, it
yes,
definitely
I'm
tunes you
powering
into what a kilowatt is. You start to get a
Yeah,
feeling.
exactly.
What is energy?
If
Okay.
you want to watch TV, you better start pedaling.
Yeah.
It won't come on until you've drawn 5 miles.
If the screen fades, it goes, pedal faster, pedal faster. Okay, Lana, Patrick, is that it?
That's it.
Okay.
Yep.
Since I'm
All
telling
good.
everybody to hurry, I promise I will be brief. But as Bob said, he and I have done some talking on this. So I came up with 2 big bullet points, and I'm gonna race through them. And I put them in writing because for future reference, you all can think about them later.
And for folks online, I'm gonna pull it up right now so you can see it.
Oh.
Sorry, Mike, go for it. I was just letting him know.
So the first one I want to talk about is methane recapture. We had a little conversation. So yes, we have methane leakages. We know that. And we also have methane leakages right near the Platte River and Dry Creek intersection with Dartmouth. If you just ride your bike or walk down there, there's a big pipe, and I think it's a vent pipe. And it smells like sewer gas. So we are leaking methane. Methane's a problem. Briefly, we have an injection system. What we have at South Platte River is really cool. We take the methane from the sewage treatment, we clean it, and we inject it into a pipe. And then we get money for that, and we work with Excel. We have these random spots of methane gas coming up. Newer technologies exist where you can either tap into one of those pipes that's there, or you drill a hole and you tap in. You can distribute that. You could pipe it back to the sewage treatment center, clean it and inject it. Or you could collect it in tanks out on the golf course, and you could come by every so often and take the tank and take it over to the sewage treatment plant. Or you could put an engine on the golf course, so to speak, and it can generate electricity or usage. So from a municipality point of view, also you can run city trucks and stuff on methane if you wanted to use it. So there's numerous technologies today on these random disparate pieces of methane pollution. Can we capture them? Can we do something with them? And the answer is yes. Costs money. But we have the centerpiece down at the sewage treatment plant. Mm-hmm. Really the hard part is down there. And so I just think, is there a pipe that we could run basically along the Platte River? Because if you go out to Centennial Park, that's what you're doing. And if that pipe could be that big around, it doesn't have to be. The other thing that happens is you have to keep the pressure level and the concentration changes. And so that's the technology where it gets put into a steady flow and a steady concentration. So you got these disparate sources, you concentrate it under a standard pressure, put it into the cleaner, you inject it into the pipe. as I did this, I thought, well, this is a full-time job. I mean, just researching, it's fascinating, researching the technology. But back to your point, you're not gonna do this in your spare time. No city employee is gonna spend as many hours as I have just dabbling in it. So there's an answer of, you do need people power to put a concept together or to put a position paper together and say, this is what we could do. I'm sure city people would weigh in on it, but it's a pretty lofty goal. But in terms of the air we breathe in Englewood, there's a lot of pollution going up. And all we're doing is watching it go up into the atmosphere. So that's my quick and dirty on the methane situation. I have many sites. These are interesting. Other cities have done this, and there are government funds to do it. The EPA has funds to do it, and the IRA has funds to do it. So methane is a priority at the federal level. So it would be cool if Englewood could capture and reuse methane. Okay, next one, city center. And Tracy, you're right. I hate to see things scraped. I won't read this to you. There has been a history or talk, almost like a foregone conclusion, that we'll just have to scrape this building whenever we redevelop. I used to work in the hospital industry, and the architects always said, we just want to wipe that wing out and start fresh. From their point of view, that's economic. But if you look at the environmental point of view, it's not economic. So the phrase is, the most sustainable building is the building that's already built. There's so much technology. Solar windows, solar walls, solar balcony shades. By the way, solar panels are something like 30% more efficient today than they were 10 years ago. So even upgrading the solar panels on this building. How do we get it into the thinking? That's all I'm saying. Don't let it be a foregone conclusion that the best thing to do is bulldoze this structure down. You can build a building within a building. And we have temperature zone controls now that you could literally have zones in this structure that are monitoring temperatures better. Heat pumps, just switching this building tomorrow into total heat pumps and electricity would be huge. And what if those heat pumps, 40% of the energy came from solar panels on the roof or on the wall? I could go on, but again, I just don't like the idea that it's a foregone conclusion. Englewood needs to bulldoze this building down and move on. I would suggest, I was going to ask Bill, there is a gentleman who works with our historical group, and he has a 10-minute history explanation of how this building came to be. I think that'd be cool for this group to look at the next meeting. I talked to him, his last name's Goldstein, I forget his first name, and I said, I'll give you 10 minutes on the agenda. But he's passionate about it, and I like that. And so, just an idea, but I just think there's more that we could do with this building than is currently in the thinking. So that's all, I'm done.
I would think another thing to be considered in parallel is not just the energy use, but the functionality of the building, because it seems not well suited for an office building, given the lack of windows, which I think was a purposeful design for a mall.
Exactly.
But that seems harshest in the library. When you go to other communities' libraries, they're bright and welcoming and happy, and ours has such few windows, almost no natural light at all.
You're right.
So that would be something to consider alongside that.
Yeah. No,
Maybe the
it's a
library
design
is
challenge. There's no question. It's a design challenge. But if people weren't thinking about it, it's definitely not going to happen. But your point's well taken. Again, the history, I didn't know this, but the history of this whole area of Cinderella City is really quite impressive. And at the time, it was very progressive what they did. And I've seen designs where they've retrofitted buildings like this, where the inner atrium lets light in, and you sort of create natural light in other ways. But look at how tall the ceilings are in this building. You could put another story in here, you know? And just, by the way, just storage. The Historical Society said, you know, if they ever get rid of this building, we're gonna have to throw a bunch of stuff out. They have boxes and tons of historical furniture and stuff, which, okay, maybe nobody cares, but storage, there's never enough storage space. So this building could be one big warehouse, if you think about it. But I would hope that sustainability is tuned into it and has an opinion. And if anything, if a developer came in, I think the city could say, here's what the Sustainability Commission thinks about saving this building. We'd sure like to see you accommodate some of their wishes. If we don't get it in writing, it's going to fade into the vapor, and it'll never happen. So that's all I have to say about that.
One guest speaker you all might be interested in would be having Dan Paremba. He oversees the Civic Center redevelopment. So if this is a passion area, I could see if he would come.
Oh.
Yeah.
Highline Canal, the High Line in New York City, they took an old railroad section and turned it into green space. So the elevated trains and stuff, my daughter worked there for a summer and she showed us around. It's a green belt. It's an elevated green belt through New York City. It's really cool. You could do something like that on the roof of this building or on that huge empty parking lot on the south side of this building. Yeah. And it's a definite technology because you have to have soil, you know, so big, but other cities do it. And it's phenomenal, so. Fun.
I just had a thought.
Okay.
We probably all have the same thought. You have all given so many good ideas, and we would probably each get behind everyone's ideas. I'm just wondering if maybe this is just like an idea for the next meeting or for a future meeting, but if we should also be discussing ways to kind of get political buy-in from the community. Because yeah, there's so many ideas out here, but of course it comes down to cost. And so I just wonder if we should kind of have like a working group discussion on how to get community buy-in, if that makes sense.
I have one idea. After I leave this commission, I still want to be involved. And one thing we've learned is this group can have subcommittees, and subcommittees can work. And so, I hope I can help on a subcommittee somewhere down the road, but that idea, maybe a subcommittee of this group could think of a communication strategy or, how do we get community buy-in on something? Maybe there's a piece of legislation or a fundraising strategy or something. But to me, the subcommittees could be the legs of this group in terms of getting things done. Because only 2 of you at a time could meet. So if Rick and I met, but we had 15 people from the community, that would all be legal, right?
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure, yeah.
So I'm just saying,
It's
maybe
just
that's a
members that
direction
can't-
this group ought to be thinking about, like action committees. Some of what Tracy and others have done is ramp that up a little bit more and then report back to this group and say, this is what we're up to.
I'm going to throw this in because I think that, and I think everything we've been talking about is fantastic stuff. We serve at the pleasure of the council.
Right.
Okay, and because we serve at the pleasure of the council, we are also responsive to what their needs are. So the first step of that is to get the buy-in from council, because I don't think you're going to get anywhere if it looks like you're doing something which may be viewed as sort of doing an end around
Mhm.
on what they would like this commission to do. So you kind of have to be
Sure.
careful how you structure that.
I would push back a little bit. I think late last year, we saw a very public powered movement to push back on what council wanted to do, specifically around housing and code. And so I think there's lanes for both.
I would agree with that
We
because
definitely
I
have to
was
be
very much
thoughtful.
involved in that process.
Sure.
So, but at the same time, I think that if you were to get a tacit, a sort of a sense that council viewed this as a positive thing, and then you're going to get a whole lot more traction out of it if you can get at least, one or two in a position where they say, yeah, I think that's a good idea. What you're talking about is a citizen sort of perspective committee on it.
Mhm.
We're supposed to be that, by the way.
Right.
That's who we are.
Mhm.
And so, but I just think that you kind of have to be politically careful on how you do it.
It's a balancing act, Rick, because think about the pollinator garden discussion 6 or 8 months ago, and there was talk about the bond, and I remember some of us met over in my neighborhood, Dana was there, and by golly, a bunch of us went to the city council meeting unannounced, perhaps rude, but spoke up and said, dang it, we're in favor. And guess what? Council listened to us. And council said, and staff listened. So to me, that was an example of where citizens kicked the door down, so to speak. It was polite, it wasn't nasty. But they didn't ask for permission. They just said, hey, council, hey, staff, parks, think about pollinator gardens. And then I saw a lot of response to that. So,
Well, and I'm not disagreeing with that. What I'm saying is that you're looking at a body that was formed based upon council. And everybody on this committee was put on this committee by council. So we have to understand the role of the commission vis-a-vis what is being discussed here. And I think those were very good ideas. I think the idea of bringing people together in the community actually does gain clout around it. But I think that there needs to be sort of a way of communicating that back to council to say, we feel that this is important.
what's Mel think?
I agree with Rick about the process of how to best get things done, in my opinion.
Okay.
Doing a lot of research on ideas, right? Ideas can seem really good in the beginning, then you like sink your teeth in more and are like, wow, that's really not feasible. So maybe that's an area of a subcommittee, right? Like we like these ideas, we're gonna buy into it, we're gonna do all the research so that when we do go to city council, it's very well thought out. That's what commissions are for, I totally agree with you. And yeah.
I mean, if you had a subcommittee that said, save this building, would you say to city council, is it okay if we put some energy into putting ideas together and recommendations on saving this building? Or would you say, it's a subcommittee, they're allowed to go out and do their homework, come up with ideas and make recommendations. Nobody has to listen to them. I mean, that's also where we are. We make
A
recommendations.
subcommittee alone can make could it make recommendations on behalf of the commission without a full commission vote? You all would have to agree.
Right. They can't do an end run or.
Right.
The subcommittee would report to this group.
Yeah.
And then this group could say, throw it in the wastebasket, or, hey, this is really interesting. We want to take it forward. I'm brainstorming right now.
No,
so
you're absolutely right.
But,
I think this has been a fantastic exercise.
because like I said, I think there are a lot of people out there not on the commission who have energy and ideas that might be able to contribute. It's 8 o'clock, holy cow. I'm the watch master. Anybody have anything else they want to talk about or bring up?
I just have one quick question in terms of when you were talking about subcommittees. So we have multiple commissions. How many commissions are there?
A lot. I don't know how many, but we have a decent bit.
Is there a cross commission, like one person from each commission?
That's an interesting idea. I don't.
Because
think-
so much of our work is overlapped with other.
Mm-hmm.
departments. It's been a thought of mine multiple times.
Sort of like an executive council.
Yeah,
Executive
like just having
commission
like
to
a
council.
commission that is made up of like
Yeah.
a member
Each
from
chair.
each commission. Just to share out, I mean, we work in silos and really it's all,
Do the liaisons ever do cross?
I don't know, just,
And,
I was just curious if
Well,
there was anything.
council is, the representative from council brings this back to
Okay.
council meetings, what's going on in the committee typically, but I think that's about it.
Is that on normal Monday meetings or the study sessions
I
typically?
think it's part of their responsibility within meetings to do. I don't, maybe it's done during study sessions. I know it's been mentioned. I know, I've heard people give reports on their committee, their citizen committee, so.
I was
Yep.
just curious.
I like it.
I've heard other cities on occasion that have a joint commission meeting just once a year or something, where two commissions meet at the same time.
And we've had examples of that, SEAC and sustainability, where they just sort of bump into each other,
We
and,
happen to be on.
but we're in silos and we don't.
Is that
really
code enforcement?
Compare
Yeah.
notes.
I'd love to have a joint meeting at some point, especially on the post-bond implementation with parks.
And ETAC would be good
Yep.
to have a joint meeting with.
Try commission. That might be a lot of cooking.
No,
I don't know.
separate.
Separate's probably better.
Yeah,
Thanks, Tracy. Okay, are we good to go?
we're good to go.
If so, I move we adjourn. Thanks, everybody, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Good work, team.
Thank you.
Will someone bring Mike
Bye,
a cake next meeting? It's his last one.
Oh,
all. Oh.
Formally,
I know I
formally.
do want to